Okay, welcome everybody. This is releasing your addiction to fears and anger in COVID times, because it's always just such a interesting time in history. I'm getting a little bit frustrated with all the fear stuff, so I thought, well, I want to keep addressing it. Um, it's one of the things I reflected about is that we're so obligated to follow and honor the news. I was taught that, well, you're supposed to watch the news because you need to stay on top of things and be updated and be concerned and be concerned about things that in a lot of cases you don't have any power over. But yet you're supposed to attach to it, judge it, make these discernments. And whenever you judge something like, oh, that's awful, I hate this, I wish I could do something about this, but I can't, and it's frustrating me. You become attached to it. A judgment attaches you, and it also begins to narrow your perceptions of the whole picture. So it's really important when you see these things to say to yourself, interesting point of view that that's happening. Interesting point of view that somebody else thinks this way, or they think different than me. That way, interesting point of view, and I'm using that exact phrase, interesting point of view, is magical. It detaches you. Automatically, it detaches you from it. And so even when you're hearing somebody bitch and complain and whine, if you're saying to yourself, you're going to insult them if you say that to them, like, interesting point of view, you're having such a hard time. They want to slap you. I've learned this through experience, so take my advice and say it to yourself. But you'll detach from them, and you'll feel this lightness in your body because you're not following that obligation or that behavioral pattern that I've got to connect to their pain. And that's the really big one, is I don't have to connect to anybody's pain. It's when we think about connecting to other people's pain and, reacting with fear or anger or sadness or shame, we start to create this mechanistic or less neuralistic mechanistic creation in our body. It becomes automatic to feel certain ways. And we just kind of go down the pipeline when we're triggered like that. And we create neurological patterns that way. And even if we're trying to do it differently, and we're looking at these news headlines, so to speak, for example, that seem to be very scary, and some are designed to get you scared. And on the opposite end, designed to get you to feeling superior and like, in a reactionary way that you feel like is positive. Kind of both of them are judgments. So we just go down this sequence that happens when we go into these judgments. And the thing is I remember my thought now, is even if we're trying to detach from it, sometimes we're triggered anyway. So whenever you're feeling this news, if you're reading it or watching it, you want to feel it as well. Feel it in your gut. Feel it in your heart. and feel it in your liver. Feel it in various places in your body and keep it at an interesting point of view. When you feel it, you're starting to get the awareness of where it actually is. And then you can nurture it. You're actually taking it to a deeper level of awareness when you do that, which is always a good thing. So that's part of it. As somebody told me, living in a adrenalized reaction to things is the path to unconsciousness. In other words, when we react in this fear or this anger or various other things, our adrenal glands become charged. Our neurology becomes sparked with this energy from the adrenal glands. Our defensive systems go up, and the primal brain, and that would be the back part of the brain right here. It's the oldest form of our brain. It's our flight and fight patterns. All become active. And we're reinforcing that. Now, one of the greatest studies, and I think I mentioned this last week, or maybe not, but one of my favorite authors is Joseph Chilton Pearce, and he wrote a book called The Heart-Mind Matrix. And one of the concepts he brought up was a child is always in parasympathetic nervous system. They're in a relaxed state all the time. It's their natural way of being. And while they're in the parasympathetic, their frontal lobe brain is developing. It is a brain of higher thoughts. Now, if a child is told no, negative things happen, and that negative things happen can be anywhere from an argument they hear down the hall with their parents, violence on the television, crazy video games that are violent, and the list goes on of all of this static and stuff that goes on in their world. When they hear that, and particularly the one thing is rejection and no, that's the one that triggers it the most profoundly. Their parasympathetic consciousness goes offline and they step into sympathetic consciousness. And the sympathetic consciousness is more oriented to doing, action, and trauma. When this happens, it takes a child 30 minutes to return to parasympathetic consciousness. Now, during that time that they're in sympathetic consciousness, their primal brain develops. So they are building those patterns of negative thoughts. And this is the source of, you ever have those negative thoughts that just don't seem to ever go away? You get triggered, something happens, and all of a sudden you're going down the rabbit hole and you just can't quit thinking about these negative things. Well, those patterns are in our primal brain. In a lot of cases. They're also wired in various other places. Negativity is a very complex thing. And when we take it to another level or another perspective, it is so much in our defensive systems. In other words, on our masculine side of our body or the right side of our body. And usually the defensive systems are these states of being that we react to the world with. We don't feel safe, or our child perspective that is in the parasympathetic has been rejected. It's become dormant. It's become smaller. I'll get to that question, Cynthia. So I kind of lost my train of thought. These negative thoughts on the parasympathetic side, or I'm sorry, on the parasympathetic side or the childhood side, they become dormant, and our feminine side, our inner child, our parasympathetic becomes smaller in our lives, and the defensive system and the sympathetic system in the emotions such as fear and anger, as well as control, manipulation, aggression, passive aggressiveness, become more dominant. So with that said, I really want to just go into what this is for our body, and start breaking down some of these negative patterns. And Cynthia brought up a great question of saying that, do entities create fear and anger in our bodies or in our minds or in our thoughts? And yes and no. The thoughts were already there. The entities, in other words, these would be etherical creatures from lower dimensional planes, beings that you really can't see, that are not in a body, but they attach to people and then influence them to live in their negative patterns, and in fact make them bigger. So removing entities helps, but it doesn't really get down to the core issues, really. And so an important part is, think about, what are your greatest fear stories? What are your greatest limiting stories? For me, mine is, I don't belong. They're usually a core story. And they're, and when you think about it, they come up pretty easily for you. I am the child that has to protect everybody, and I do that with anger. I'm just going to list out a couple of them here of people. I actually had to think about people and go, what's their core story? And it kind of spouts out. I have to support everybody with love, and it's always scary for me because I don't know if they're going to love me. I'm sad that I don't get to be me, and I have to use anger to push myself to be a better person so I can make my mother and father proud of me. These are all type of core stories that we live by. Some of them, and this creates sometimes a lack of confidence, worry. On the other side, blaming others, that we're always angry at others, and we blame other people for what's going on in our lives. It's never about us. It's always about somebody else. Fear that I'm going to be rejected. I just have a list of various things here. Fear of betrayal. Fear that I will be harmed. And this is one that's very prevalent. And so, in other words, our core stories kind of get us out of believing in our magical, feminine, childlike self that lives in a parasympathetic, relaxed consciousness. And it jumps to the other side of, I'm afraid that I'm going to be harmed. So how this really connects to the world right now. And right now it's really funny because we are in a highly stressful time. We've not really encountered anything like this in modern history. And so this can create a lot of fear for a lot of people, because what happens is we can hear these fearful stories like, oh, well, how will we ever recover economically? Or if you get this virus, you're going to die, you know. And what happens is your past fears get triggered. And if you haven't really resolved your past fears, they're going to trigger really big. And if you constantly are using your past fears to charge you and you're always reacting to them, it's even going to be more bigger. And because they're charged and they're so active and they feel so alive and most importantly, real and true, when we read these news lines that, oh, this is going to kill us, oh, the economy's going to collapse, it's going to be so horrible. If our past fears are resonating with that and we cannot distinguish between the two, we're really going to think that scary story in the news is very true. It's just going to feel true because our whole body is resonating with it. So everything that you're misidentifying and misapplying with those perspectives, would you claim on and acknowledge that you would like the awareness to see the difference? We're just asking your body to kind of open up to this different form of consciousness right now. Right, wrong, good, bad, pod, all 9 shorts, boys, and beyonds. Ooh. Okay, so we're going to just take some various behaviors, you know, and kind of run them through the meal, so to speak, and clear the energies on them, clear the emotions from them. And if you feel like I'm not getting your story, or you want it to be first and addressed, unmute and tell me what it is. And we'll start from there. I wanted to say, you know, I love this definition of addictive behaviors or addiction. Addiction is doing an action or using a substance repetitively in order to avoid a less than pleasant reality. That pretty much, in my opinion, sums up addiction. We're always avoiding something that's unpleasant inside of ourselves. That's why it's always good to go, let me see what the core of this is. Let me see what the defensive system is. And where do we find the core of the defensive system? In the liver. That's on your right side, right under your rib cage. It's the strongest organ we have in our body. You know, when the liver dies, you die. So we're going to do some stuff in there. And usually defensive systems work in a triangulation. There's 3 emotions that go in a cycle, like sadness, fear, anger, or sadness, anger, love. And we just do this, you know, we escalate with one emotion, go into some sort of energetic crisis to some degree, and then we go back down and have something that is more settling in a lot of cases. So thinking of one of these things that's an addictive behavior is worry. And I'll add this in, always trying to figure it out. It's like we get it in our mind and we got to get the right answer. So how many things in our body has been turned off and we have taken all of that energy and went into our mind to find the answer. And you know, it's really a hard process because we're always trying to figure out the right answer and get all of our facts and figures straight. And it's a lot in how the world operates. So everything that you've decided that that's the only way to do it, and you use your fear, anger, sadness, shame, love to get that done, would you be willing to change that process? Everything that is, right, wrong, good, bad, pot, all nine shorts, boys, and beyonds. Okay, so let's just start working on some of these triangulations. How much, and I'm just kind of pulling this from the air. What I do is I just kind of feel the group in general and say, well, and I always ask the question, if you want to find a different perspective, you always ask questions. So what is this about worry for the group? Where do they start the most? How many triangulations of fear, anger, love? In other words, they get fearful about something. They use a lot of intensity to get their focus, which is a form of anger. It's a very unpleasant thing. I got to get this figured out, and you know, I just don't like it, but damn it, I got to, you know, full speed ahead. And then there's a place where we just relax and we feel a form of completion. So what triangulations with that do you have with worry that you're trying to figure it out? And that's the only way to do it. All of those decisions, judgments, compilations, and conclusions you've made to make that as your triangulation, will you please revoke, recant, rescind, reclaim, renounce, denounce, destroy, and uncreate that totally and utterly. Right, wrong, good, bad, pod, all nine shorts, boys, and beyonds. And this, and you know what kind of showed up is like, how much are we in this place of defeatism, like we're trying to defeat the problem? We're going to conquer it. We're going to control it. We're going to manipulate it and dominate it, as opposed to the feminine side would go, well, I'm just curious about this. I wonder what this pain is about. And the masculine side would be like, we don't care about the pain. We just want to control it. Suffering is inevitable in the masculine side. And mark that I said suffering is inevitable. Instead of most people say pain is inevitable, suffering is optional. The masculine side that is in this state of being suffers. So everything that you have compiled, that suffering with this is inevitable. It's a part of your life. And all the fear, anger, shame, with that, will you please revoke, recant, rescind, reclaim, renounce, denounce, destroy, and uncreate that totally and utterly. Right, wrong, good, bad, pod, all nine shorts, boys, and beyonds. And how many of y'all, when you really get into worry and you're trying to figure it out, you start to shrink, you contract, your confidence goes down, and you lose curiosity, And therefore, you had to find an answer in order to find your equilibrium again. How much shame, fear, and anger are in that triangulation? That you have to defeat the problem in order to find your own security. All of what that is, will you please revoke, recant, rescind, reclaim, renounce, denounce, destroy, don't quit that totally and utterly. Right, wrong, good, bad, pod, all 9 shorts, boys, and beyonds. And everything that you've turned off: curiosity, nurturing, non-linearity, which are all feminine characteristics to this. Would you claim on and acknowledge that you can have these again? Right, wrong, good, bad, pod, all 9 shorts, boys, and beyonds. Ooh, okay. Well, that's starting to get deeper into this. How many, and I'm just popping these up about worry and trying to figure it out and control. How much is there to baseline is shame? I do not want the world to know what I fear about myself, and that the fear is I feel inadequate, I feel less than, I feel I don't deserve, which are shame-based perspectives. So how many triangulations of shame, fear, and anger hold that in place? All the decisions, judgments, compilations, and conclusions you've made to do that, will you please revoke, recant, rescind, reclaim, renounce, denounce, destroy, and uncreate that totally and utterly? Right, wrong, good, bad, pot, all 9 shorts, boys, and beyonds. It's always the funny thing with shame is that it always feels like if you ever saw the secrets that you've been holding about yourself that are shameful, that if you really saw the truth of them and saw them deep down about what they were all about, this is my own perception mostly, it would just burn you to cinders. You know, it would scare you so bad that you couldn't accept yourself anymore. In actuality, it's quite the opposite. It's just a little bitty mouse in there that looks like it's 10 foot tall. And you know, that's just how shame works. It always wants to stay hid and secret and intimidate you in that place. So all the fears you have of your own shame, and all of that duality, that if your shame was ever found, and on the other side would be, I fear that just tremendously. So all the duality of that, and we call it a double bind and double binding system. So just think of yourself as like, well, what do I really feel shameful about? And what is the fear that if it was ever uncovered, oh, it would look, you know, so awful that I couldn't accept myself. So I better hide it. So just get that feel of what that is. That's a duality or polarity, by the way. So we're going to clear the polarity with it. All the double binds and double binding systems, holding that in place, where you pock and pod the ends, pock and pod the middle ground, and destroy and uncreate them all totally and utterly. Right, wrong, good, bad, pod, all 9 shorts, boys, and beyonds. And everything that you bought your shame, it's almost like you just picked it up from your mom or your dad. In other words, they felt that about themselves, and then they projected it onto you through their behaviors and what they were saying to you, and you just incorporated in vibration. So all the projections, and just think about it, was it my mom or my dad? And what did that feel like? Just think about, that most negative side of them and that kind of beaming down on you, and what that felt like and how small you felt. Just get that picture inside of yourself. All the projections, rejections, separations, and judgments, holding that in place. Will you please destroy and uncreate that totally and utterly? Right, wrong, good, bad, pot, on, name, shorts, boys, and beyonds. And how much do you hate that projection of somebody thinking that negatively about you? And everything that you've created that as a fear. And all the shame, fear. Is it sadness? Is it anger? It's love. All of that triangulation. In other words, the shame would be the belittlement. The fear would be to take action to maybe please that person. And then they start to accept you again, and you feel that love. Of course, they've been accepting you all along. They just may be having a bad day and they're just taking it out on you. But as a kid, we don't know that. We can't distinguish that much. So everything that just brought up in that triangulation, and all the decisions, judgments, compilations, and conclusions, holding that in place, will you please revoke, recant, rescind, reclaim, renounce, denounce, destroy, and uncreate that totally and utterly. Right, wrong, good, bad, pot, on, name, shorts, boys, and beyonds. Now I'm going to throw in something else a little bit. We're going to address how we've been working with the liver and the masculine side. But let's work with the primal brain, because it's almost like the information of the liver, the solar plexus, and the neurology of the body feed the primal brain. They spark it into thoughts, basically. And so, ever since I read the Joseph Chilton Pierce book that I mentioned earlier, I've been really fascinated with the primal brain, and I came up with a clearing that really works in clearing negative thoughts. It's real simple to do, and you just almost like use the clearing and put in what you feel is negative in your life, and it begins to clear it out of your primal brain. So it's really a great clearing. So I call it our neural cortex sensory systems. So where in your neural cortex sensory systems have you created the reality that I had to figure it all out, or I will be feeling ashamed of myself? All the specific implants, explants, and positive negative ions, free radicals, all that in place. Will you please destroy and uncreate that totally and utterly? Right, wrong, good, bad, pot, on, nine, shorts, boys, and beyonds. And let's do a couple more with this. I find that I do the primal brain clearings about 5 to 10, and I'm kind of done. They're really intense. So just pay attention to that back of your brain back there, and as I do these, and feel if there's a release, if it feels lighter. So where in your neural cortex sensory systems have you created the addictive reality of worry? It's like if you're worrying all the time, you don't have to go into the deep core of the fear. You're just kind of having this dialogue that simulates the energy, but it doesn't really get you to the real fear of it that you're really scared of. It's not a lot of fun. So all the Specific implants, positive negative ions, free radicals that hold all of that in place. Will you please destroy and upgrade that totally and utterly? Right, wrong, good, bad, pot, all 9 shorts, boys, and beyonds. And where in your neural cortex and sensory systems are you afraid of not having the answer? And therefore, you got to go out and find it no matter what. All these specific implants and positive negative ions, free radicals that hold that in place. Will you please destroy and upgrade that totally and utterly? Right, wrong, good, bad, pot, all 9 shorts, boys, and beyonds. And on the opposite side of that, where does it feel like you're helpless in finding the answer? You can't get it. And that anxiety and shame sets in with that. Where in the neural cortex sensory systems are you holding that? And all the specific implants and positive negative ions, free radicals that hold that in place. Will you please destroy and upgrade that totally and utterly? Right, wrong, good, bad, pot, all 9 shorts, boys, and beyonds. And one more for right now. Where in your neural cortex sensory systems are there messages of, I don't have what it takes. I don't have the confidence. Oh yeah, doubt. That's the word, doubt. Doubt is kind of like a second cousin to fear. It just places this feeling that you can't do it, and it just irritates the fear. So everything that brought up in your neural cortex sensory systems and all your specific implants and positive negative ions, free radicals, hold that in place. Will you please destroy and upgrade all of that totally and utterly? Right, wrong, good, bad, pot, all 9 shorts, boys, and beyonds. I don't know about y'all, but it's almost like we just brought up a bunch of shit. It feels, does anybody's body feel more uncomfortable than it did before? Because that's the way it's feeling for me. And that's really okay. It's just like it's up. And everything that you are triggered in fear, that this is unmanageable, that this is a negative thing, this is a bad thing. Would you be willing to let that go? Right, wrong, good, bad, pot, all 9 shorts, boys, and beyonds. And all the intensity you have put out there that I want to let all of this go right now. It's almost like a force coming out. All the force and energy, you're doing that in your body. Like, I'm tired of this fearful intensity. I'm tired of these times that we are facing. And damn it, we're going to get a shitload of stuff done in this hour. All the projections, rejections, separations, and judgments that are based in fear and anger with that. And all the Shaku implants, Mobius strips, quantum particulates, light particulates, holding that in place. Will you please destroy and upgrade that totally and utterly? Right, wrong, good, bad, pot, all 9 shorts, boys, and beyonds. Okay, feels like it got a little lighter there. So all the force and energy used to push anger and fear, how much resistance do you have these days? Like in these times, it is too much, and I don't know if I can handle this type of pressure. Not only in your personal life, maybe some of you have lost your job and, you're wondering about money, or maybe you're just looking around the world and go, how are we going to find an answer to this? How long is this going to go on? How long are we going to keep everything, running smoothly? Because for right now, it's running relatively smoothly. So everything you're doing to push that with fear and anger, like, we got to find an answer. You know, when you do that, it just kind of makes it very linear. It kind of takes you down into the rabbit hole, so to speak, as opposed to what are the possibilities this is going to change my life to a great transformation? You know, what is that going to look like? What can I create in these times that's going to keep me in an expansive, creative, also state of wholeness? Okay, so everything that we have bought the anger, fear show as a solution, and all the intensity that we are putting that in, all of a sudden everybody's liver is getting revved up, which is a good thing. How much force and energy are we living with that? And just think of it, it's just like you look at a news headline and you go, damn, why can't we get that figured out? You know, damn, this is awful, you know. And every time we do, it's almost like that judgment contracts us a little bit. And then there's another part of us that's going, we got to push out of that. We got to find this answer. And how much energy are we using with fear and anger to push? I like to connect with the infinite intensity consciousness of that energy. And everything that we've made it so secret, hidden, invisible, covert, unseen, unsaid, undisclosed, that we can't feel it. We can't see its strategies. Will we allow these secrets to be revealed and feel the full intensity of anger and fear we're running right now? Okay, I'm just pumping it up, folks, so we can clear it in a bigger way. So here we go. All the force and energy you're using to do that, will you please destroy and uncreate it all totally and utterly? Right, wrong, good, bad, pod, all 9 shorts, boys, and beyonds. Now, I'm not telling you to ignore the world or ignore the news. What I'm suggesting is to look at it with an interesting point of view, with curiosity, and drop that line that for you to judge it and feel concern is a good, dutiful thing. In other words, you're a responsible adult if you get mad and you take a side like, this is the good guy, this is the bad guy, I got Bill Gates all figured out and he is definitely, you know, going to hell for this, you know. I have information about it, and that makes me a good human being. You know, are any of y'all playing those type of games in some way, shape, or form? You're trying to figure it out, trying to get a judgment in there because that's the right, good, perfect, correct thing to do. Would you be willing to let that go? Right, wrong, good, bad, pot, all 9 shorts, boys, and beyonds. Now, I think Octavia went to these classes I did a couple of years ago, maybe more than a couple of years ago. Time passes so quickly. But we started working on the world problems. And basically, we would go into a reality of the world problem, like all the trash in the ocean. And we would go into the collective consciousness about why we can't find an answer there. And, you know, what keeps that stuck. And it's kind of like, for a long time, it really felt like, you know, the whole world was stuck in fear about that. And what I found is the common denominator in all of that was shame. And it was the shame that we could not make a difference. And that's the lie. It's just like a lot of the times we feel shame because we're not the person going out and cleaning up the ocean every day. Therefore, we're part of the problem. And you know, that's where we misidentify everything. We have to, us by just doing the little things and being more conscious in this world and opening our hearts with prayer and or meditation or goodwill to others, and all of these little things make a huge difference in the world. So everything that you're experiencing, that shame that you're not doing enough during this time, and everything that you've done and converted that into fear and anger, and all the triangulations with that, will you please revoke, recant, rescind, reclaim, renounce, denounce, destroy, uncreate, all of that totally and utterly. Right, wrong, good, bad, pot, pod, all 9 shorts, boys, and beyonds. So would you claim on and acknowledge that you are contributing to something more expansive? Everything that is, right, wrong, good, bad, pot, all 9 shorts, boys, and beyonds. If you follow me on Facebook, I invite you to see my quote that I put up this morning. And I won't tell you what it is. But you know, I really see this time in the world as a time of great expansion. We have this duality in this world of like all of this chaos, all of this illness and these fears, and people just kind of shutting down. They're staying at home, they're chilling out, but also that's somehow opened up this big wave of advancement. So would you claim on and acknowledge that you would like to be on that advancement, that you are part of that? And that's the question you asked yourself. Oh yeah, excuse me. Right, wrong, good, bad, pot, on 9 choice, boys, beyonds. It's the question you want to ask yourself every day is, you know, what am I doing today to help that? You know, what can I do to move that along? It's a good thing. It just kind of opens you up. It's a question. It opens up your awareness to start seeing things differently with that. And one of the key ingredients with that is being creative. So I want to do one more thing. I've done some more. I've done more passive behaviors, but I want to do one that's more on the other side of action, aggression, which is blaming. So how many energies are you putting out there that somebody else is doing something wrong with this? And in some ways, you're blaming somebody either by pointing a finger, posting something on Facebook that whacks somebody else, yelling at somebody on the corner, whatever, kicking your dog. So what is this with blaming in the liver, in the defensive system that's there? So everything that you bought that you can control your own fear, your own sadness, no, your own shame, and anger. So we're working with shame, fear, and anger with this by blaming somebody else, that it will make your pain a little less. It will, and everything that brings up, all the decisions, judgments, compilations, and conclusions, creating that triangulation. Will you please revoke, recant, rescind, reclaim, renounce, denounce, destroy, and uncreate that totally and utterly. Right, wrong, good, bad, pot, pod, all 9 shorts, boys, and beyonds. Whew. So, or something else with that, and it just slipped my mind. Sometimes this energy, it opens a space and it gets really blank in my mind and I can't think about the next thing. So we'll just go to the next thing after that, which is how many neural cortex and sensory systems are directed to, I am angry at my mother, my father, the world. Wow, this is the problems of today. Oh, that was good. I am mad at the problems at today. All the specific influence and positive ions, free radicals. And hold all of that in place, will you please? Destroy and uncreate that totally and utterly. Right, wrong, good, bad, pot, all 9 shorts, boys, and beyonds. So I am mad at today. How many projections, rejections, separations, and judgments is expanding that in your defensive system? It's almost like if you're carrying that anger, you look at something in the news or something like that that makes you angry, and you gotta get in your car to go run an errand, and you're mad about it, and you're just a little pissy at everybody as you go about your day. If you've not resolved that thing inside of yourself, and you're projecting that out. So that's a form of aggression, by the way. How much sadness, shame, nope, anger, and love are holding that in place in that triangulation. All the decisions, judgments, compilations, and conclusions holding that in place. Will you please revoke, recant, rescind, reclaim, renounce, denounce, destroy, and uncreate that totally and utterly. Right, wrong, good, bad, pot, all 9 shorts, boys, and beyonds. And another strategy with this is so lovely is instead of just barking at everybody and grimacing at them, you smile at them and go, oh, with all love and light, God bless you, or something like that, and you're really pissed as hell and you're really nervous, but you're trying to do something totally opposite of that. So everything that you're trying to implode that reality, contract it into, that it will dissolve that way, like use 100% of love to conquer something that's really bugging you. And it really doesn't work. So all the decisions, judgments, compilations, and conclusions, you've made that with shame, anger, and love. Will you please revoke, recant, rescind, reclaim, renounce, denounce, destroy, and uncreate that totally and utterly. Right, wrong, good, bad, pot, on, 9 shorts, boys, and beyonds, and everything in your neural cortex sensory system that holds that, and all the positive ions, free radicals, hold that in place. Will you please destroy and uncreate that totally and utterly. Now let's just go back to childhood with that one, because that's a really interesting one. How many of you were really pissed at somebody because they really treated you unfairly, and then they expected you to perform and be grateful for all the abuse they gave you? In other words, you're supposed to be the smiling child that's loving to them, and they've not been fair with you. You're basically trying to suck it up. Boy, the discomfort level just kind of spiked on that one. So all the sadness, anger, love triangle with that one. And all the decisions, judgments, compilations, and conclusions holding that in place. Will you please revoke, recant, rescind, reclaim, renounce, denounce, destroy, and uncreate that totally and utterly. Right, wrong, good, bad, pot, on 9 shorts, boys, beyonds. Now that clearing was all about those people that realize the game's going on, but they feel like they're helpless, and they just got to perform and smile and say, I love you, mommy. And they're going, you bitch. The other one is, you don't realize it and you just believe that you're wrong. Like, well, my parents told me I was like inadequate, so I must be inadequate. They're not getting mad, but they're being shameful, then fear and love. That's the triangulation. And they're the ones that are going, I love you so much. And they're just like, you know, they're being abused, you know, they're being, you know, treated unfairly. But yet they have to turn it all into love and repress all of that. So, how much force and energy do you use to hold your awareness down? Because you're kind of forced to play that game, and then you start believing that game is true. So all the force and energy you use to hold that back, will you please destroy it, uncreate it all totally and utterly? Right, wrong, good, bad, pot, pod, all, nine shorts, boys, and beyonds. And would you claim on and acknowledge it's okay to get mad if you're treated unfairly? Right, wrong, good, bad, pot, all, nine shorts, boys, and beyonds. And everything that just got sparked in your neural cortex sensory systems with that, all the positive ions, free radicals, hold that in place. Will you please destroy and uncreate that totally and utterly? Oh, right, wrong, good, bad, pot, pod, all nine shorts, boys, and beyonds. Let's take a breath on that one and a drink of water. That one's a big one, because what it teaches you in modern day is I am helpless to be an agent of change in the world. So I might as well go about and just keep this repressed, keep smiling, and use addictions to make myself not feel this anger that I have because people treated me unfairly. They're the ones who told me I'm never going to make it, or you're not performing correctly, you know. You're not standing on your head correctly. What is the anger of that energy that you've not allowed yourself to feel? And just pay attention to your liver or other parts of your body. If some part in your body feels really uncomfortable, then it's been triggered. So let's clear it, but let's kind of set it up and make it bigger. It's like we're talking about all the anger you have because you've been treated unfairly. And there's probably, for a lot of you, there's a lot of scenarios of that. And it's happened many times. And we're just plugging into a little bit of it, most likely. But it's nice to get rid of a little of it and feel a lot better from it. The thing is with these clearings, when you clear it, you're using a lot of energy to keep these emotions repressed. Well, when you clear it, that energy becomes part of your innate power. So you get your power back, you get your energy back. That's the whole point. So thinking about how much anger do you have because you've been treated unfairly? How much of this for you that's triggered is between birth and 2, between 2 and 5, 5 and 10, 10 and 15, 15 to 20, 20 on. And everything that you've made secret, hidden, invisible, covert, unseen, unsaid, undisclosed, unacknowledged about that, will you allow these secrets to be revealed? Right, wrong, good, bad, pot, pod, all nine shorts, boys, and beyonds. Okay, so let's clear it. All the force and energy you use to hold it in place, will you please destroy and uncreate it all totally and utterly? Let it return to pure energy. Right, wrong, good, bad, pot, pod, all nine shorts, boys, and beyonds. And everything in your neural cortex sensory system that says, I shouldn't feel my anger. I got it converted into something else. All the specific implants and positive ions, free radicals that hold that in place, will you please destroy and uncreate that totally and utterly? Right, wrong, good, bad, pot, pot, all nine shorts, boys, and beyonds. Wow. Boy, I might do this one again. There's a lot to cover. I feel like I've just barely like scraped the surface. Um, so, just this homework, ask your body, is it really feeling angry about this? What's the energy of anger with this? If you're starting to get anxious, worrisome, compulsive about doing something else, maybe like sitting down and drinking a beer when you know you need to not do it, because you got other things to do, whatever that is, you might want to ask yourself, is there fear I am avoiding? Or is there anger I'm avoiding? And, if it feels like that's a yes, ask where it is in your body and just sit and be present with it. It's almost like you're nurturing it and acknowledging it, and you're giving it energy instead of trying to distance yourself from it. And therefore, it will start to move, it will start to resolve. And also you can use these clearing statements and clear it. And this is one thing that I've learned with this work, is you don't want to make these energies the enemy. Like, I want to get rid of that damn anger. It's like, no, you want to see what it has to offer you, what it has to teach you, and what its strength is, and then clear it. Or have that in mind when you're doing the clearings, because that offers you more freedom. We're not doing a polarized point of view that we want to destroy something that's been a part of you for a really long time. We just want to change it and transform it into something that's really cooler. So with that said, I want to thank everybody for coming. I'm going to be in Austin, Texas through the month of May. I might travel to the Southwestern United States after that and camp. I don't know. And still got my heart set on going to France, in which I'm sure I will. So I'm saying that. So if you want a private session or you got questions, please give me a call. I'm available. And I'll have this out on recording. Please share it with your friends if you feel so inclined. Don't feel reserved that you got to keep it a secret. That's not the whole point. The whole point of this is that more people resolve these issues, so the whole world gets a little bit lighter, and that you're lighter. That's the whole idea. So thanks again, and I wish you all the best, and I'll be back soon with another class. And I don't know, this one just doesn't feel like it's tapped out. So I might get back to this one. So thank you so much. Y'all have a great day.
Thanks, Bart.